Hey, movers, welcome back to another live episode of Moving Past Trauma. I'm your host, Collier Landry, and what's going on? Happy Friday, May 19th. Wow, this year is moving, guys. I gotta tell you, it is moving so fast that right before this, I just literally got a call from a lawyer who's doing a civil case that I was involved in, and they're like, "Hey, this thing is finally going to some sort of trial." This is like 2 years later. It's very odd. I just spoke to the person who has the lawsuit, and they were like, "Yeah, so I guess we're going to trial." So I'm like, "Wow, I guess I feel like light years have passed." Um, what a weird last couple of days. It has been for sure. Welcome everybody, and for those of you that don't know, I am Collier Landry, and you are listening to Moving Past Trauma, my live version of it. So thank you all. I see a lot of channel members here. Gen X Granny, Coffee Buzz is here. Kim Shoren, Black Widower, Old Lady Snoop. I won't even have to leave to catch Joel. Oh, interesting. So I'm here to catch you guys up on all things true crime this week, some things that have piqued my interest. It has also been a sad week because the Lakers have lost twice. For those of you who don't know, I'm a basketball fan. I live in Los Angeles, live from Santa Monica, California. This is Moving Past Drama with Collier Landry. I should do a voice. What do you guys think about that? Um, an announcer voice. But yeah, here I am. There's been so much movement that has happened, and I know I promised you guys a Lori Vallow and what that relationship is going to look like for Colby Ryan in prison. I am going to do all of that. I had to work this week, so I threw a monkey wrench into my scheme. So I apologize, but that is coming, and I'll even talk about a little bit about that on this show. That's for sure. Uh, but yeah, it's interesting when I have thank you so much, Jen DeSemio, for purchasing a sticker. Jen is in Ohio. She is a fellow Ohioan, and she is joining today. Looking forward to next week, by the way, doing these all live. And many of you have asked where you guys can find merchandise for the show, how you can support. All of that is in links in the show notes, but you can go to collierlandry.com/links, and that will give you guys links to my Patreon, gives you guys links to the store, all that fun stuff. I'm putting that here in the chat notes as well. Uh, Tara Newell says she did not contact me yesterday because the Lakers lost. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Anyways, I want to say thank you to all of you, my channel supporters, my Patreon supporters, for being here. But yeah, a lot of people ask me where can they get the film, all that, and there's links here in the YouTube as well. So thank you all for joining. So I want to get to a few notes. So it has been so I had a conversation for a podcast. It's episode that's yet to be released, but I spoke to this woman named Jodine Weber, who was a former FBI agent for 22 years. She has a podcast called Caught in My Web that she does via Patreon. And she gives her expert insight into an analysis into her background in journalism, then turned into law enforcement and how that works. And one of the things that we were discussing in our recent conversation was, obviously, I believe it was yesterday, Bryan Kohberger was he's not in court. He was supposed to be in court today, I'm sorry, on Monday. But he was officially charged, or he has yet to be officially charged. I'm sorry. He has been indicted, but he has yet to be arraigned. And we were discussing the victims, and a lot of people were calling for the teardown of this student housing in Idaho. And we were discussing the Murdaugh trial and how that was so key in the courtroom and how that played out when the jurors were able to walk the actual crime scene and how effective that was in the prosecution's conviction of Alec Murdaugh, or Alec Murdaugh, however you pronounce it. I don't know. Alec Murdaugh. And how being able to go through crime scenes is really important for jurors who are facing, they're essentially holding someone else's life in their hands, right? And as you know, Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty. There has been, I was listening to an analysis of it earlier today. There was over 10,000 pictures and something like 9,000 pieces of evidence. And I know that you guys are way more experts on this than I am. I'm just giving my sort of take on all of this, and this is something that I discussed on my show a couple months ago with Dr. Danielle Slakoff. And one of the things that the defense essentially said is that the absolute sensationalization of this case, right? And the media conjecture, the social media conjecture surrounding everything has been is one of the reasons why they need so much extra time to really present an adequate defense for Kohberger, right? Which makes total sense. I mean, he's facing 4 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Madison, Kaylee, Zara, and Xana, and Ethan, and 1 count of felony burglary. It's interesting when they stack all these charges up, because a lot of people discuss with me with my father's case, well, why do they put that abuse of a corpse, year and a half charge on there? Well, it makes the murder charge stick. So that definitely, when they add these felony, all these charges, they just, it's just like Lori Vallow. She had all these other charges, conspiracy charges stacked on top of everything. It's just to make sure that if they are convicted, or when they are convicted, that that it sticks. But they want to they want to comb through all of this evidence because they're looking for exculpatory evidence, which means, if you guys don't know, is exculpatory evidence is evidence that they can use to get him off. So they're looking for evidence that will prove his innocence rather than his guilt. And of course, the prosecution is like, have at it. We've looked at all of it. I don't know how anyone looks through all this evidence, but apparently they have, or according to them, to find this evidence to get this guy off. I really, every time I look at these cases that come out now and the complexity that is involved in them, even though they're very simple, he committed a crime. People have tragically lost their lives. Now there's a whole community that's engaged around this, and there's a whole now a legal process that needs to be carried out, which is arduous at best. And then you have the families, and one of the I believe it was Mr. Goncalves, who is Kaylee's father, was basically saying, we're ready to bring it to this guy. So they're obviously looking forward to the fight ahead. It's exhausting. It's and with all the conjecture that has been swirling around this case, their resolve is amazing. That these families are holding for the victims. It's a lot. And Kohberger's family, who has been drugged through the mud. Now they are going to they're kicking the can. Like I said, they're kicking the can down the road because of all this, just massive amount of evidence. Who even knows if this trial goes forward this year? Who knows what's going to happen? But there's a lot of evidence and a lot of police work that is involved. I'm going to get some of your comments here. Look what you guys are saying. Oh, you missed it last time. All right. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome again to all my channel members. Thank you so much. Hello from Mary Alice from San Diego. So when we last left off, we were last week was obviously the verdict against Lori Vallow, who was convicted of obviously her role in the deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ and Tammy Daybell, and then obviously the conspiracy count as well, and whatever other charges. And what that looks like, and it was this Mother's Day this past weekend, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And it has been interesting to see a pattern of bad mom behavior lately. We have obviously Lori Vallow would be the kingpin of this, but then we have Letitia Stalk, who was just also convicted a couple of weeks ago for the death of her stepson Gannon, and now we have this Kouri Richins case, which has come up, and you would think I wonder in a lot of situations when I think about this, there's eerily some similarities that have to do, again, I feel like all of these cases follow a very common thread, which I believe is rooted in some sort of narcissistic personality disorder, some sort of psychopathy, which is a generation of that. because I recognize so many attributes in these perpetrators, as I do in my father. Now, again, Kouri Richins is innocent until proven guilty, of course, but she, for those of you that that know that don't know, she wrote a book a year after the death of her husband. I think she published it in March. And the book was called, hold on, I have it here, I promise. I believe, oh no, I guess I don't have it here. I believe it's called We Are Without You. But she wrote this book so children can understand the grieving process of losing a parent or a loved one. Now, I mean, the sense of just, well, hypocrisy, irony, I don't know what you would call it, is just, obviously she has been charged with the death of her husband, and he his name, hold on here, I have it. His name is Eric, but I can't remember his last name. Oh geez. Of course my notes are not good today. But her husband, so she had served him his traditional like Moscow Mule. I guess they had closed some real estate deal together that they were doing, or he had good news from work, and she claims that she went to bed that night and then came in with one of the kids who was having like night terrors, or wanted to be read a story, and then she fell asleep and then went into the room and found him keeled over at the foot of the bed, and the body was cold. And then proceeds to go on and write this book, and she's going on television. And this also happened, ironically, in Utah. And she then goes into this whole, victimization sort of analysis. And it brings me back to when I was doing an interview earlier today on another podcast, and I was describing the time of when my father was talking to me about my mother leaving the family, right? And there was always this kicking the can down the road of, oh, when she comes back. And I'm like, well, are you looking for her, Dad? And obviously not, but oh yeah, she left our family. I know that you're really going through it. She just left us up and left us high and dry, knowing full well that he ended her life. So I see the exact same thing in this Kouri Richins situation. Again, with this sort of gaslighting of, let's say, even the media, gaslighting of the family, gaslighting of the public, for example, stringing along law enforcement, prosecutors, all these people. But apparently, after she claims all this, one of the obviously damning amounts of evidence that is against her is she had messaged a known proprietor of illegal wares, as we will say for the censors on YouTube, illegal things, and one of those things was Fent. We will abbreviate, but it is something that is a very common thing. The United States is experiencing an opioid crisis right now, and this Fent is something that is very prominent and plays a very prominent role in that. And obviously, it can stop your heart. And the dosage that they believe that she was asking for was was that heart stopping amount. So there are a lot of things that have presented themselves there. She was trying to make amendments to his will and his trust, and I believe that this gentleman Eric had apparently sort of had claimed that she may have poisoned him before, 6 months before. He slipped something in his drink. So apparently he had an awareness of this, and he made some precautions and had changed the trust where she was trying to funnel some money, I believe close to $200,000, $2 million, that she was trying to funnel to purchase a house, purchase some real estate. And also, there was $125,000 to $150,000 in cash that was in a safe that Eric's sister had control over. But and apparently Kouri had acted out and punched her when she wouldn't give her the money. So there are a lot of factors going on in this case, but I think at the center of this is, and what we mustn't lose sight of, is that there are 3 children now without a father and without their mother, which is almost a carbon copy of what happened to it with my father, because my mother is taken out of the picture, and my father is most certainly going to be incarcerated, as he was. Again, and there was 3 siblings, right? I have a half sister. I had a sister who was adopted from Taiwan before 6 months before my mother's life was taken, and then there's me around the whole time. And those kids now have to, and those families now have to pick up the pieces of this. Again, I talk about these things to raise awareness about them, to also give you guys sort of not a victim. I don't like being called a victim. I was victimized by violent crime. I am most certainly not a victim, but but I mean, I guess for purposes of that, this is a difference between having a victim mentality and being an actual physical victim of something. But the nuance between when you're caught up in the middle, and this is true obviously for Lori Vallow as well, is when the surviving children or child is caught up between the perpetrator who's committed the offense and then against another member of the family, in this case my mother, in this case my father against my mother, it presents a very, conundrum is not quite the strong word. It puts you in a very serious situation where there's a lot of self-doubt that goes into it. There's a lot of questioning. I certainly experienced this throughout my life, like questioning who I am, questioning where I came from. Am I capable of doing such a thing? And then there's the external scrutiny that you get from being a victim or in the center of a case like this, where people are trying to excoriate you for your behavior, or saying things of like, oh, well, apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or perhaps that you that you can take after these people who have committed such unspeakable acts in cold blood, really. And those are things that I think we always have to think about in dealing with, obviously the mental health aspect of all this, which is something I'm obviously very, very passionate about, because I know how it's affected me. I know how it's affected me throughout my life. And yeah, it's an interesting situation. I can remember and this is something that I think that Colby Ryan will have to deal with. I know that he's come out and look, in his testimony, he was, obviously angry, and I believe, from what they said in the courtroom, he stared down his mother and gave her a look of disgust after he stepped off the witness stand. Yeah, but he was doing things of questioning and having suspicion that his mother was impersonating his sister in text messages, and he confronted her about the deaths of them, and he how he was trying to confront them on why his mother felt that she had a religious justification for taking these lives if she in fact did that. And he's just sort of pleading with her. And that's something that I experienced my entire life with my father. And for those of you who've seen my film, Murder in Mansfield, you can find it in my web store if you'd like to purchase it, or a link below. But in Murder in Mansfield, when I'm confronting my father, there was a very, obviously a very poignant discussion that I had with him, which is, why did you do it? Right. And that, in that moment, as you may or may not see in the film, is ultimately what what I was looking for, and why I did what I did, was to get those answers. And so Colby Ryan's life is going to look like, is going to be very heavily established in pursuit of these answers. He is going to pursue them in a way that hopefully he can come to his own conclusion about what you should do and what works for him. I know there are several comments that I got from you guys, commenting. I won't mention who these people are, but she said, she was my mother, I wouldn't go visit her. For one, all of her lives and lies and laughing at him on top of killing his siblings. but also she is not worth working his life around going to go visit in a prison. Also, frankly, I wouldn't want to spend any time in a prison, even as a free person going to visit her. I hope he works on himself and making his own life happy. All these living victims of Lori and Chad deserve that. Absolutely. All these living victims of Lori and Chad do deserve that. It is, again, very easy to say, because I feel like for a long time I said I would never go visit my father, even though I did. But nothing in the world is ever going to change for Colby Ryan that his mother, A, did this, and B, that his mother is his mother and his mother was his siblings' mother. Nothing will ever change that. Nothing will also ever change the fact that he had really good memories with his mother. I mean, I've seen videos of him, and I've seen him in the documentary Sins of Our Mother, with them, driving to college. I believe he went to Purdue or something. Them driving to college and making little silly videos in the car, and he has all these really positive memories with his mother before she crossed into this state of this messianic syndrome that she was suffering from, or falling for this cult that she was involved in, or just because, or just literally always had it deep rooted inside, and ultimately decided to commit what I believe was probably one of the worst things ever, a mother against her children. But he also has to work through those emotions of having those good times, something that I've had to do a lot of. And I did a video recently. I did an interview on another channel called The Fallen State, and I got just a a load of very angry and vitriolic messages. Many people saying some very horrible things, which I won't repeat on this live, but people excoriating me for my behavior, saying that I could have even caused my mother's death because of alerting my mother to my father's philandering, which was obviously not true because she always knew about that, right? But it is very easy for people to sit in a seat of judgment and not understand that, and I was expressing to the host, I do have positive memories of my father. That takes a lot of reconciliation or that is a lot for you to reconcile when you are looking at them as a perpetrator against the most important people in your life. And in that case being my mother. But Colby with his siblings, right? And Colby with his family, and how the family has been so fractured by this situation and by this violence, that they therefore um, it makes it very difficult to come back together. And that is precisely the same thing that I experienced, because my father had not only committed this horrible crime against my mother and my family, but also had been accused of committing other crimes against which I had no idea as a child existed, but against my cousins on my mother's side, which ultimately led to my mother's side of the family disowning me, if you will, and not wanting to have anything to do with me and my life because of that happened. Because, and as I explained many times, there are lots of ways that people process trauma and process what they're going through, and you try to just do the best you can. Do I think they did the best job? Probably not. But like, I wasn't in their position. I know how angry they were. A lot of it is people get overwhelmed with circumstances, and probably just bringing a child into their life whose father caused so much pain is just not something they can really handle. And then, unfortunately, is one of those ancillary, I wouldn't say ancillary victims, but ramifications of violence of this nature. This is exactly what Collier Ryan's going through. The same thing. The family has been so fractured, and also fractured because of an outside source too. And one of the things that a lot of people ask me, and something that I held on to for a lot of anger, or that I felt anger to, was that of my father's girlfriend. Oh, thank you so much, Laura North. A yellow sticker. I would love to read. I'm trying to get a hold of him. I'm trying to figure out a way to reach out to this gentleman because I feel like he and I could have some pretty good talks, and I could get some pretty good advice. One of the things that served me absolutely no good was the fact that I was in a state because okay, we have Chad Daybell, right? Who's an outsider of the family that came in, right? And during him coming in, all this quote wacky behavior started with Lori, right? And she drank the Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it. And thank you so much, Tara, for a super sticker. Um, and I think a lot of people don't understand what that really looks like, right? So you have this this outsider who came in. So for me, it was my father's girlfriend, right? So I immediately blamed her for the cause of my mother's death, right? As I think, Colby Ryan could absolutely say the same thing. He could absolutely put that on I see somebody said sing, always loved your voice. Yeah, just sing, sing, sing. What's going on? Uh, there you go. There you go, Steve and Amanda. Um, but one of the things that back to my point, which I am making, I swear, is that it's very easy to blame that external person for the behavior of the other person, of the perpetrator, right? So in this case, he goes, well, if Chad didn't come into this situation, then therefore this wouldn't have happened. Much as I said, if Sherry had not come in and been my father's girlfriend, then this wouldn't have happened to my mother. Maybe that's the case, maybe, but this is also something, that this is also something that you just have to. It's a really tough pill to swallow. Is that the behavior? He might have been antagonized that behavior out of her, but that behavior was in her to do anyways. And I feel like, and for myself with my father's girlfriend, I didn't understand that my father had many, many girlfriends before this. This wasn't something new. So I just blamed her for a while when I was a child because I thought, well, if this person hadn't come into my life or my father's life, then therefore everything would be fine and dandy. When really it wasn't. Nothing was fine and dandy, and it would have been someone else, or my father's behavior would have occurred against my mother from some other reason, and or for some other reason. It's not like that person was the cause of that. They just were sort of part of they were part of the mechanism that this whole train wreck happened, right? They were just another cog in the machine, but in a relationship with someone who suffers from these narcissistic personality disorders or psychopathy, everything with these people is transactional. So even someone who's a pawn, even someone in the process of maybe Chad Daybell, like she was latching on to what he was quote preaching to her, right? And her beliefs and these wacky beliefs and she sought him out obviously because she was already believing these things, and he may have encouraged that behavior, but ultimately she's the one that makes the choices to participate in this behavior as well and cover it up. And people become expendable. They're just somebody that's getting in the way of their happiness. For me, I believe that, well, for Lori Vallow, it's Tylee and JJ Ryan and Tammy Daybell and her husband Charles and maybe her brother Alex. Like all those people are expendable. All those people are in the way of her true happiness. Um, and all of those people are coming in the way. And somebody just mentioned money too. There's also money, of course, that plays a lot of these factors because they want that as well. But all of it, it's all together. It's not just. I feel like even in the case of my father, who he it wasn't maybe money was sort of a factor in it, but also the factor is he viewed my mother as an obstacle to his ultimate to whatever he wanted, right? So I think he just wanted my mother to play ball and let him do whatever he wanted. And when she put her foot down, therefore he was therefore he she was then expendable to him, because she was not validating his behavior. She was not helping him. She was in fact, he was the children. I'm sorry. My mother was in fact creating obstacles for my father. And how I made it through, I have no idea. But I ended up being an obstacle further down the road. But same thing with Lori Vallow. Like the children then became obstacles for her to happen. Well, first it was the husband, then it was the brother, then it was the children, then it was his Daybell's wife. All these people become just they're just expendable. And I understand this sounds like a really foreign concept to a lot of people, and that's absolutely fantastic that it does, because you don't want to think like this, because not everything is transactional. Things aren't transactional in life with normal people that have relationships and engage with each other. And this took me so long, and it's still something even to this day. And this is something that I would say to Colby, who probably has grown up seeing this behavior, is that it takes me so long to sometimes, even in my own life, look at situations in just my normal engagement with people, is that I don't have to provide them with some sort of transaction. Interacting with me is good enough. I don't have to just provide them with some sort of, okay, well, you do this for me, I do this for you. Okay. Life doesn't work that way. But when you grow up around these people and you witness this behavior, which I guarantee this wasn't her first time of behavior, this is something you have to it's almost like retraining your brain, because in that mental health sort of aspect of looking at all this is, I often wonder, like, can I retrain my brain when I start to think about, or even when I go through my father's letters on this podcast, which I've done many times before. I got to read some more for you guys soon, but everything that I look at is transactional with him, everything. And it's so interesting, because I just think to myself, okay, well, like, where was I, this wasn't something that I thought I grew up with, but maybe I did. I don't know. So that is a process of all of this that is going to be something that Colby Ryan is really going to have to learn, to sort of retrain his brain in a way, because he has he's whether or not he knows this, he's grown up with this, and that is a very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to work in. It's a very, very difficult thing to work through, but you got to do it, because the road ahead it's challenging. It is full of self-doubt. It is full of, questions. And am I really like this? Could I really be like this? And it's going to take a lot of therapy. And speaking of therapy, I want to cut to our sponsor. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I'm going to play a quick ad. I'll be right back. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. So, hey, movers, as you guys all know my story about my trauma. My father murdered my mother when I was 11 years old. I witnessed it happen, and I testified in court and put my father in prison. And that story comes with a lot of baggage. And even though I got through that trauma as a child, it didn't really start creeping back up to me until I was an adult. And it started manifesting itself in a lot of different ways, where there was a lot of boundaries that I allowed others to cross. I got into bad relationships. You know the drill. But one of the things I found that really helped me was speaking to a trained professional. And I got the help that I needed. So if you guys are thinking about starting therapy, I cannot suggest a better resource than BetterHelp. So visit their website, go fill out their online questionnaire, and they'll get you matched up to a licensed therapist that can really help you move on to that next phase of your life. Visit BetterHelp.com/ MPM to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/MPM. God, I love when I get that thing to work. It fits into good time. Anyways, BetterHelp, sponsor the show. Thank you so much, BetterHelp. Check them out. Back to the Colby Ryan, Lori Vallow relationship, should he choose to have one. And honestly, I read some of your comments. I know that you guys all are, first of all, let me say this. You guys are all very concerned about this young man, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's so great that you guys, as my audience, it's so great that you guys have compassion for another human being that's been through so much. So I want to say thank you for that, because that is, that's really cool. That you guys can be, even though you don't know this person, that you can show support in that way and understand and recognize, because a lot of this is, you grow up in this stigma, right? And he's going to forever have to deal with this. And this nightmare is not concluded, by the way, because now she's going to go back. She's already been charged in Charles' death, and and there might even be more stuff that comes out, and it is something that he's going to have to, that he's going to continue to have to. This wound is going to be fresh for quite a while. And I think with my, thank God there was nobody that was on the defense, by the way, which I thought was really bizarre, that there was no witnesses. I mean, I don't think it was that bizarre, because I think that there was just no defense, right? Like, there is no defense for this type of thing. You pretty much got them dead to rights, right? But I think that one of the things to to bear in mind is that this is going to continue to be rehashed, refreshed. Old wounds open up, they're never going to get a chance to heal. It's going to be quite a while. And my father did the same sort of thing, and even though his trial was done, he wasn't on trial for another crime or anything. He was incarcerated and was using his lawyers to raise doubts about whether my mother's body was my mother, for example, which tormented me for years. And when all of these things came up as miscalculated in the autopsy, her eye color, her weight, all of these things, her hair color, even, it wasn't even until I was sitting there making my film and I was looking at the case file with Detective Messmore that I just was, it was just starting to sink in. But I had questioned so much of this, and even to such a point that I had signed an agreement or approval or whatever you want to call it, to have my mother's body exhumed towards the end of 1994, so they could perform a second autopsy on the body. And I had to go. I remember I drove with my adoptive father, George. They're probably watching right now. We went and we went to this place in Akron, home of LeBron James and the Black Keys, but we went to Akron and on the early morning, and I gave a blood draw for DNA for the body, because they were doing this. And there's a lot of things that my father had brought up and said, and there's an episode that I have of this called Lies Caught on Tape of this program. And I have more tapes and more lies, of course, because there are more tapes. So there are more lies. But I brought it up. It was an interview with my father that he had taped in prison on a radio show with a pastor, and he was just spewing sort of lie after lie, conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory about my mother's death and all these, just grabbing at straws. And that was something that I had to go through for years and years, because that is a re-traumatization. So in a way, even though my father was incarcerated, he was convicted, he was still fighting it. And you go through this period again when you're trying to cope as the child of someone who has committed such a heinous crime towards people or towards your family members, that you also are thinking, am I cut from the same cloth? And these are things that you continually have to work through over and over and over again. And that is definitely part of your healing journey. The healing process is when you can be able to is how you process all that, because he's going to go and again, if I was to talk to Colby Ryan, I would say, you do whatever you want, but she's your mother. And if you feel that you want to talk to her and you want to understand, don't listen to anyone else but you. I can give you my own inside baseball experience and everything, but I I had to go through that process of anger, but ultimately deciding that, again, there's a process of forgiveness that goes with a lot of this, so you can move on with your lives and hopefully not perpetuate the cycle of this, because this is intergenerational trauma. This is what occurs. There is you don't want to see this passed down into your generations. You want to be able to say, hey, the buck stops here. I'm not going to continue to perpetrate this type of violence or this type of aggression or this just bad behavior in general. For me, it was with my father, and I'm going to answer. Thank you for your sticker, Kathleen Welch. I will answer that question in 1 second. I wanted to give you acknowledgement. Uh, you have to make a decision that you're going to stop perpetuating this bad behavior. My father, not only is there obviously taking the life of my mother, but there's all and all of his bad behavior with that, and then with the crimes that he had perpetrated against my cousins on my mother's side, but also there was his bad behavior as far as how he conducted himself with women, how he conducted himself in his relationship with my mother, and how he mistreated individuals, me, my mother, in terms of his temper, and how he was just and this facade of a life. I forget a lot about my father, and even in this interview that I'd given on this program, and everybody was saying, "Oh, your mother put all these things in your head." I was there. I saw all of this, but I remember, and I forget to mention the fact that my father had a whole life that he had created outside of our world, and it wasn't until I want to say I was in high school, so a few years after he'd been convicted, maybe even college, but I was talking to someone and they brought up a dinner that my family was at with their family and some other people. And my father sat at dinner and told this whole story of being shot down in his F-14 Tomcat over the South China Sea in Vietnam, and continued. Well, when he was shot down, his ejection seat lever for the ejection seat to eject out of the F-14 Tomcat was stuck. And so he could not safely eject the cockpit of the airplane, of the jet. So the plane went down in the South China Sea, and he pulled out his Bowie knife. And I mean, I believe that the plane had gone down. Either he pulled out the Bowie knife while the plane was going down and cut himself out of the cockpit, but I believe the plane had landed in the water at night, by the way, I believe too, and that he had cut himself out of the cockpit with his trusted, naval issue Bowie knife, and then swam 2 miles to shore. And my father I wish I had a photo up here. My father and they showed this during the trial, but he had photographs of him in a naval officer's white uniform with all of these decorations and ribbons from medals that he had won. And if you remember at the time, this is like the late 80s when he's telling these stories, right? Because this is before the death of my mother. But he's telling a story. So what had come out around that time? Top Gun. So he was latching onto this Top Gun sort of fantasy. And I swear to you, my father would tell me, because Top Gun had come out, I was a kid, I was excited, right? Airplanes, I loved airplanes as a kid. I grew up the first 5 years of my life on a naval base in Dahlgren, Virginia, where my father worked as a doctor. And then the airplanes would land on a runway in our backyard, and I would just watch them. I loved it. I wanted to be an astronaut, fighter pilot when I was a kid. I mean, I think a lot of kids want to do that anyways, but because it's cool, right? But I was very, very excited about all of that. And my father would tell me, "Hey, Bumper," which was my nickname that he gave me, that because I used to point to nose cones of the fighter planes and call them the Bumper. But he's also told me that I got that nickname because that was his quote call sign as a naval fighter pilot. his call sign, which you all have call signs. So when you're talking over the speaker and communicating with the other pilots or the tower or military command or what have you, you use. I've never served in the military. Props to those who have. Thank you for your service. But you have a call sign, and this is so and so, but he said it was bumper. So he would tell me that he goes, I remember the day he came in. He goes, oh, they found my fighter pilot helmet, and I would ask my dad, Daddy, did you get your fighter pilot helmet? Because I couldn't wait to try it on and pretend I was, Tom Cruise and in Top Gun or whatever. It was still a lie. He told me every time I would ask him, because of course, for those of you that have kids, I don't, but you know that when you tell them something, you put something in their head, they ask about it a lot, right? They ask about it a lot. It becomes a focal point for them. So I was always asking him about this fighter pilot helmet that never existed at all. So a lot of these lies and deceptions also come into play. And this is a cycle that also, when you go through this sort of trauma, that you have to decide in your head, like the buck stops here, right? This stops right now. Kathleen Welsh, to answer, thank you for your question. Thank you for your sticker. The question is, did I ever talk to my father about him standing in the doorway, in my bedroom doorway? I don't ever think you heard you talk about this. So that's a really good question, Kathleen. I know that I did not ask him in the film. I am pretty sure I never asked him that question about standing in the doorway. I may have. I'll have to look through some letters, of course. I have 400 of them, like I said. But I never asked him about his feet in the doorway. I don't believe I ever did. Maybe I don't know. I don't remember it. There's a lot of things I asked my father that he wasn't truthful about. And thank you so much again, Kathleen Welsh, for another little super sticker, super chat. It was definitely not like my father. Oh, thank you so much. Your mother most definitely was an amazing woman. Your father underestimated your strength and bond with your mother. Yes, that is very true. He sure did. I often wonder about that too. And also, to go back to this sort of topic du jour, if you will, which is, again, I guess I'm getting into it, but Colby Ryan and his relationship with his mother and what that will look like. The thing is that is he will have to reconcile all of these lies and this pattern of lies and just how easy it was. I think that was the thing that was so staggering for myself. And I think I had said in this interview, I up until my father asked me to tell my mother, to lie to my mother about his girlfriend, I never told a lie. Well, I mean, that's probably a bit hyperbolic. I'm sure I fibbed and lied about a lot of things, but something like that, lying about my father telling me to lie about his girlfriend, that it was a big deal. So sometimes kids can be hyperbolic, but he's going to have to sort of wade through all that BS of those cobwebs that he's going to have to like clear out of the back of his psyche and the back of his family history to be able to process what his mother put everyone through, and to understand that you have to come to this understanding that that's not you. That's not what the process you're going to take. That's not you. That's not who you are. So Colby has to unpack all of that. And then to address some of y'all's comments from before, I love how you guys I'm just in here talking and wonder if the bumper story is true. Well, I'll show you something. Yeah. And NPD love to dupe. Yeah, that's for sure. But I do remember my mother also admitting this. In fact, check this out. So I actually still have this. My father had these made. I guess when I was younger, when I was a kid, but this is a California. He had a bunch of these, like Florida or whatever. But I somehow ended up with this. I don't know why, but it's kind of ironic that it's a California. This is like a fake plastic license plate. This is bumper, which I thought was kind of what was that for? Foretelling? Would that be? Is that the right? Is that the right word? Foreshadowing what my life would end up being like. But there you go. And I have that on my little tchotchke shelf behind me, which one of these days we'll have to get to, and I'll have to share all that with you guys because it's kind of interesting. I got like so much stuff. It's not even funny. But I do this on my live meet and greets that I do through my Patreon. For those of you that are Patreon supporters, please check it out. For those of you who want to join, I do monthly meet and greets with y'all where we're all on video. We all talk. We do it over Zoom or Google Meet, and everybody gets to interact. And it's really fun, actually. Like you guys are interacting here, but you get to see each other. You get to interact. It's very cool. And I usually just kind of unpack some stuff that I have around the house and interesting things. I'm going to take a sip of water, and this is a product placement shot. This is the Marisol mug, Marisol Super Chi mug. I believe this is the 15 ounce. Coffee with Collier Coffee Club is going to come, and we're going to have decaf, as requested, some decaf blends as well. But that'll be coming soon. But anyways, shameless self-promotion. And to be honest with you, the stuff that I have in the store, Marisol stuff sells way more than mine, which I think is wonderful. Everybody loves Marisol. Go back to what I was saying. So since we're delving in this Kouri Richins thing, so there's a whole other side of all of this that you know, in like these comments that come in. They said, I don't know if I would want to go near a prison. Yeah, like just to be quite honest, and for it's something I also like to explain for those of you guys that may or may not know. So it's something I'm like really passionate about telling people and just being straight up with. You guys does everyone understand what the difference is between jail and prison? And I mean this totally very seriously. I'm not being condescending. A lot of people will use these terms interchange these to use these terms as if they're interchangeable, and they're not. Jail implies when you get arrested, you go to jail and you're getting out. Okay, so you get out on bail, or they're holding you until your trial or whatever, and then if you get exonerated, prison, you're not getting out until a specific time. Like prison is like lock, throw away the key, right? The jail is not that. Jail is you'll get out. You get out on bail. So just to be very clear of the differences between that, because sometimes people think they're one and the same, and it's definitely not. Prison has a finality to it for sure. But one of the things is that if he does decide to have this relationship with his mother, and he does go to prison to see her, is I believe that she's going to this. Pocatello Women's Correctional Facility, which is, I believe, one of the toughest women's correctional facilities in the United States, which is in Idaho, I believe. Yeah, I believe it's in Idaho. That's no joke. And prison is scary. Like prison is terrifying, because even if you're, you have to understand too that Colby goes in there, and again with all of this past history that he's going to have to get out of shake somehow. I had to do it too. When you go in there, you feel like a criminal, even though you're not a criminal. You feel like a criminal. They just have this way of just creating this anxiety inside of you when you walk into a prison and you're going through the processing, and you've got to give your ID, you have to answer questions, you then have to sit, you then have to this and that, you can't take this in, you got to, do you have anything in your pockets? You go through the metal detectors, they might pat you down, they search through your stuff, you got to have a whole process too. And I'm assuming that now things have changed since the last time I was there, which was 7 years ago. But I would normally bring change, because you can only bring change, but now they have key cards that you can use to put money on cards. But all these things cost an extraordinary amount of money. It costs money to load these cards to be able to get things out of the vending machines. It costs money to put everything. Talk about transactional. Everything in the incarceration system is 100% transactional, and there is a fee for everything. There is a website called JPay, which is how you can interact with inmates. So I'm sure he'll happen to use JPay if they allow it in the state of Idaho. So he'll also communicate, because there's only a certain amount of companies that deal with all of this because of all the stuff that goes into it, the background checks and the things of that nature. So, but everybody has their hand out, right? It's very true. The prison industrial complex does exist in this country, is a very real thing, but I won't get into that right now. But they can get things as tablets that look like iPads, but they're not iPads. They're JPay players or J players. I got my father one. You can watch videos and all this stuff, but even things of that nature, like they'll have access to this, but again, everything is very expensive. So if something costs 99 cents at the iTunes store, you can better believe it costs $2.50 in the JPay store. It's extraordinary. But he's going to be able to, he's going to have to come and get used to that whole way of seeing his mother and dealing with his mother, which is, going in and you get the card, you get this, you go through security, and then you have to think of too, is that when I would go in there, my father's case was very high profile in Ohio. Sorry. My father's case was very high profile in Ohio. Lori Vallow's case is very high profile in, I don't know, the country, if not the world. Everybody, for the entirety of her life in prison, whatever that looks like, they always will know. Every single person that comes into that prison is going to know who she is, or is going to be told who she is, because somebody will bring the new fish in and say, "Oh, that's the woman. Remember that woman that killed her kids? That's her." You live under that. Just like when I would go into the prison and they would say, "Oh, that's Doc's son. That's Doc's kid. That's the kid that testified against Doc, or that's the kid." And sometimes people look at you because they don't like that. And sometimes people look at you because they judge you for that. That's what Colby Ryan's going to experience. All the eyeballs looking at you, everybody looking you up and down, security guard after security guard. And are they thinking, for me, I was very empathetic. Like, are they thinking that I could do something like this? Could I do something like this? Am I here? Are they going to, you even get anxiety, which is completely based in no sense of reality whatsoever, but your own perception of that reality, which is that you might end up getting stuck in there. You might not be able to leave and get in your car at the end of the day, at the end of the visitation, and get out of there. You might get stuck there as a guest. I'm telling you, I know it sounds crazy. You just go through my head all the time. Like, what if I got stuck in these things in one of these places? Like, it's absolutely terrifying. And something that I've heard many people say is that when someone like a loved one is in prison, that the people that are outside in prison are in prison with them as well. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of, you have mothers and brothers and sisters and fathers and that have children who are incarcerated, who part of them is taken by that, right? It's no different for what I experienced with my father. It's no different what Colby Ryan's going to experience with his mother. I I feel like he has to come to this place of understanding that just because this person carried you in their womb and you are a product of them doesn't necessarily mean that what they did could ever translate to you. And that is so easier said than done. That takes so much work. That's we want to say go to BetterHelp. I don't know if BetterHelp can even help you with that. That is going to take so much work and compassion and understanding and compassion from his other relatives. I've been through it. It sucks, man. It sucks. Everybody's going to know who you are for the rest of your life for all the wrong reasons. I saw that Colby had been arrested and recently released. Charges were dropped, but he was engaged in an NSA confrontation with his either estranged wife or ex-wife. And thank you so much, Paige Matthews. I remember how brave and forceful and sure of the truth you were on the stand. Amazing. You're the reason I'm a prosecutor. Oh, thank you so much, Paige Matthews. It's so wonderful of you to say. And yes, forever curious. Prison is sentenced through the courts. Absolutely. What was I saying? Yeah, getting himself into trouble, and and obviously those charges were dropped, but the choice, like, he has a very unique opportunity to, and again, this is really tough stuff to This is my take, having been through this. Look, I have been through all of this, so you guys, my audience, don't have to. Straight up. I've developed this sense of understanding how these things work in crime and in true crime and how all this plays out, because I've lived it. This cannot unravel him. Colby Ryan, you can't let this unravel you, because it will if you're not careful. You have to understand that this cannot unravel you, but this also can stop with you. This doesn't have to continue. You can make these better choices because you know what right and wrong is. You know what your mother did wasn't right. You knew that. You were calling her out on that, as many other people were. You testified against her. You know that. Don't let it unravel you. It's not worth it. It's not worth it, man. Keep your side of the street clean. I implore you. Try to be a good person, which I'm sure you are. Try to keep it cool, man. That's all I got for Colby Ryan. That's my take on that. Is that and I'll still do a video about it, a shorter video, but that's it's tough stuff. It's tough stuff. It's a hard road to hoe, and people it's easier said than done. It took me a long time to get there. A long time to get there. A little bit of BetterHelp too. Not gonna lie, it took me a long time to get there. But I'm going to take some of your questions. By the way, okay, I mentioned in the comments as well. You might have thought I was kidding. I was going to do a live yesterday, as I promised, but I have many fans of the show, and all of you are here, and you are fans of the show. I have one fan in particular that is a doctor and a friend who's a makeup artist, and we shoot some stuff together. And he has a friend who's a doctor, and she came to LA, and he said she loved my story, and she's like, I'd love to do something to you. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have lost a little over 20 pounds this year, especially in the last couple of months. I had gained a bunch of weight at the end of last year. I'm a very fit guy, pretty fit guy, and I've grown up that way since my mid-20s. But when my other Chihuahua passed away, Blondie, and the holidays hit, I kind of got into a little bit of depression. He started eating a lot of sugar, which I don't normally eat a lot of. And I was like, feeling sorry for myself, right? And I gained a lot of weight. And as you get older, it gets really easy. It is really easy to put on weight, and it is really hard to take it off. But I wasn't exercising like I normally was and things like that. So anyways, I literally have lost 20, almost 25 pounds now. And my friend said, I want to do something for you. And he said, have you ever had anything done to your face? And I said, absolutely not. I have never had anything done, no cosmetic procedures. But she injected me under my chin with Kybella. And if you can see this, I have this little like bloop, 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 which will go away because I normally don't have this little turkey neck. But they gave me some Kybella free of charge. They said, here, try it out. I said, okay. I'm not going to do Botox. I'm not doing fillers or anything, but I'll try this little Kybella to get rid of this little chin, snatch this chin line up since I lost so much weight. So anyways, I wanted to share that since I wrote Kybella. I tried to prep my adopted parents. If they're on here, they probably heard it. They're like, no. But anyways, I wanted to share that. So we'll see if it works. Give it about a week. I mean, it's like, it feels like you got hit with an uppercut underneath your chin. So it's like, See, you never would have noticed that. See, I shouldn't have admitted it. I was gonna toy around with like mentioning it, but I do notice my face is super puffy from it, so it'll all go away. It'll go away. But anyways, so we'll get to see if Kybella really works. I want to get to some of your questions here, though. You guys asked, and I didn't notice. Yeah, LO. So I spilled the beans and nobody knew it. Nobody noticed. Thank you so much, Blue Jeans. Your heart breaks me. That's okay. Look, I was going to say, I share a lot of this, and again, I hope that, and I appreciate everyone that says exactly what Blue Jeans says. Thank you, so much. My heart breaks for you. That I appreciate all this. I hope that everyone understands that I tell my story, that I share all of this to give you guys knowledge about the world that I have and the way that I have seen this world unfold and my specific knowledge in it and my perspective on true crime or my perspective on events that affect mental health because of what I've been through. It's not to garner sympathy. It's not to say, "Oh, look at me." It's really to share this information because this is something that I never thought I would be doing necessarily on a platform like this, but here I am. It just kind of unfolded, and here I am, and I'm embracing it. And it all started with the film a few years ago, and then we had a pandemic, and then now I'm back to it, and then here we are. And so I appreciate everyone who supports me. I don't wake up every day and say, "Woe is me." I don't, I have many frustrations, but that is not one of them. And I hope you guys understand and recognize that. I think you do, but sometimes I don't. I feel like I don't make that clear, but I am very, very grateful to be sitting here in front of you and to be sharing my story and to be sharing it behind this microphone to you guys, my audience, because uh, I feel that there's a lot to be learned, um, and a lot of ways that we can look at the world. And I always think about when I see somebody that's been through challenging stuff, and I'm going through it myself. I mean, I did it growing up. I found those stories inspirational, and they're like, "Oh, if they can make it, I can too." And I hope that's the effect. I think that's the effect I'm having. But I want it to be very clear that it's just I don't ever want this to feel like a "woe is me" thing because I don't feel that way. I don't look at the world that way. I want it to be empowering for people because it's empowering for me. It gives me a purpose, and I really like to know. Thank you so much, Jess. Nice to know we aren't alone. Love seeing the good peeps from KJ's who got us through the awful trial, reading court tweets. Love you, good people. Oh, thank you so much, Jess. Jess says, it's definitely helped me finding this channel when I was a kid. My aunt, and it just went away. Oh, my aunt life was taken by my uncle. He used religion to justify his actions, and they only charged him with abuse of a corpse. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm glad you're finding some of this in here. How long have I been a musician? Collier Landry, how long have you been a musician? And was it something you picked up early in life or after adoption? No, it was something I picked up early in life. I used to sing all the time. I mean, I still do, just don't do it in public, I suppose. But I was big into singing and dancing and all that stuff when I was a kid. I remember I used to quote serenade my neighbors when I was a kid, singing like show tunes out my bedroom window. Really goofy. I remember doing that. I was a little ham, I suppose. Jen DeSemio says, I love how you open up with your story and how you turned a terrible experience into a way to help people. Thank you so much, Jen DeSemio. I appreciate that. And again, Jess, I'm sorry that you have gone through what you've gone through. I'm glad that this material is resonating with you and that you found this channel too. It's glad to have you here. And I'm glad you guys are all supporting her and showing her love and support in the comments. What genre of music do I enjoy playing the most? I am into, I would say like bluegrass, blues rock, rock and roll. Yeah. Stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. Singer-songwriter stuff. Valuable, Rui says, valuable education regarding psychopaths. We need to acknowledge the existence. Love you, Collier. Thank you so much, Rui. I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that. I'm going to go with some of your earlier questions here. See some people. I love how you guys are carrying on this whole dialogue while I'm talking. It's great. Jail is county and usually fewer than 12 months. Erica says, jail is county and usually fewer than 12 months, and they have almost no amenities, commissary, recreation. People sentenced to 6 months or whatever, jail is miserable, less scary, but miserable. Oh, that's a good point. And yeah, that is a very good point, Erica. Let's see. Coffee. Everybody's talking about coffee. Let's see. All right. Well, thank you, Tara. Thank you and Tara help so many people. Thank you. Yes, check out our new podcast. Tara Newell and I have, it's called Survivor Squad. Also, Tara Newell and I are doing coaching workshops for trauma survivors and for better relationships. If she is here, she should put that in the comments below. That will be, I will put a link to that in the show description of today's episode for you guys to check out. But yes, we are doing as Survivor Squad. We are doing coaching sessions for better relationships and also for healing through trauma, working through trauma, moving past trauma, if you will. These will be on Saturday, I believe June 20th. Don't quote me, but they'll be coming up into Saturday in late June. And you guys can check all those out. So I want to say thank you to everyone, all my Patreon supporters, all my channel members here on YouTube. Thank you all so much for joining the program. I'm Collier Landry, and this is Moving Past Trauma. Thanks, y'all.